Hello everybody, my name is Neil Bakiev. I'm your IELTS instructor and welcome to the video course called Mastering IELTS Graph Descriptions, Model Answers. Today we'll be analyzing a bar graph, and this bar graph is taken from IELTS Practice Tests +1, Pearson Longman, page 21. Let's read and analyze this task prompt in detail. The graph below shows carbon dioxide emission in several areas of the world. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Okay, so here's our graph, and this graph is called a bar graph. So first, we need to write the introduction. The bar graph compares and contrasts the data relating to different amounts of carbon dioxide emissions produced per person in 9 regions in 1995. Okay, first you must indicate the type of the graph that you are describing. So in this case, you should say the bar graph. Okay, not just the graph or this graph, but the bar graph. Next, compares and contrasts. Compare, that basically means when you want to focus on something similar, and contrasts when you want to find something different. The data relating to, in this case, relating to means about. Different amounts of carbon dioxide, CO2. Okay, so here we have CO2 emissions. So we have just paraphrased it. Produced per person. Okay, so here we have tons per person per year. Okay, in 9 regions, and here we have 9 regions. And then in 1995. So you must indicate the exact year. Okay. All right. So basically what you need to do is to paraphrase the task given, okay, and make sure to include all the details here. Now let's focus on the next sentence. Okay, in the next paragraph, you must focus on general trends. You should not focus on any percentages. As can be seen, while an average person produced the highest proportion of CO2 per year in North America, one living in Asia and Pacific contributed the lowest amount. So you can write as can be seen or overall, and these phrases basically mean that you're talking about very, very generally. So when you compare the largest and the highest and the lowest figures, use the phrase while. Okay, so while or whilst. So while an average person produced the highest proportion of CO2 per year in North America, let's look at North America, and we see the highest number. Okay, so you must include this. So here, the highest, high, higher, the highest. Okay, so high, higher, the highest. Okay, so we need to use the superlative form here. Okay, proportion. In this case, proportion basically means part, but you don't want to write the word part, you want to write the word proportion. Next, in North America, next, one, in this case, one means a person living in Asia and Pacific contributed the lowest amount. So again, here we have low, then lower, and the lowest. Okay. Amount. Okay, so basically our job is to show the highest and lowest figures in the graph without indicating these exact percentages. So it's just an overall picture. Now let's focus on the next paragraph. More specifically, almost 1/5 of the total CO2 was released by an average person in the USA at 19.34 tons. Okay, so when you are writing the next paragraph, make sure to focus on very specific details. So here I'm focusing again on the highest figure and use the phrase more specifically. Almost 1/5, because 1/5 would be 20, but I don't have 20, and therefore I wrote almost 1/5. And then of the total CO2 was released by an average person in the USA. You must be very specific. So here we have North America, in the USA, and then comma, at, right, at, and show the exact amount. So at 19.34 tons. Okay, remember to indicate the measurement, because here we have tons, right? So we need to do this. Next, those individuals who were living in OECD, Central and Eastern Europe, and Western Europe. Now, okay, let's just look at all of those countries. So those who were living in OECD, okay, here we have this country. Okay, next, Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, we have this area. In Western Europe, yes, we have this area, were the second largest producers of CO2. So what you need to do is to unite several countries, put them all in one group, and say that all of them were the second largest producers of CO2. Because you don't want to describe every single country in detail, you want to group them, okay? And then you should talk about the percentages. And then with comma, with the figures ranging from 8.58 to 10.97 tons per person. So here, ranging from basically means now we're focusing on the lowest figure and on the highest figure here. So therefore I'm showing the lowest figure here and the largest one, okay? And try to remember this structure, comma, and then with the figures ranging from, and then show the the lowest and the highest. Okay, so this is our second important feature. So we have grouped several countries together and indicated the range here. Next, an average person in all of these three areas produced almost half as much CO2 as one living in North America. Okay, so here, right, I'm comparing the highest figure with the second largest figure. So an average person in all of these three countries, and we know what kind of countries we're talking about, okay, produced almost half, okay, because here we have 19.34, which is almost 20, and half of that would be 10, okay? So therefore, I indicated this fact like almost half as much CO2 as one. Try to compare it as much as, okay, in North America. Okay, so that's our strategy. Next, the lowest amounts of CO2 emissions were recorded in, so then the strategy is you need to focus on the countries which produced the lowest amounts of carbon dioxide emissions, okay? And again, put them all together in one group. So instead of writing produced, you can just write were recorded. So here, the lowest amounts, again, lower, the lowest, were recorded in, and then be very specific with the countries, okay? And then where the figures were under 3 tons per person. The expression under basically means less than, okay? So 3 tons. If you look at this carefully, it's 2.4, 2.58, 231, and all of them were less than 3, okay, tons. And that's why exactly that's what you are doing here. So show the lowest figures by combining several countries. That's what the examiner expects you to do. Next. Interestingly, so when you see an interesting fact, when you want to compare something, you can use this phrase interestingly. The total amount of CO2 produced per person in all of these 3 regions, right? So again, we're looking at all of these regions and we're looking at the average figure was almost equivalent to. The expression was almost equivalent to means was almost the same as the amount of CO2 produced by an average person in Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, so the idea is if you combine them, 2.4 plus 2.58 plus 2.31, then the total amount would be almost the same as 9.25. Okay, so that's what you can do. All right, and then at approximately 10 tons. In this case, at means at the level of. And instead of writing about or around, use the word approximately because it's an academic word for the IELTS examination. So combine several countries and compare the figures with that of another country. And that's exactly what we've done now. Next. And that's it. As you can see, the most important thing is to focus on the most interesting features in the graph. You don't want to describe every single country. Focus on the country with the highest figure or with the highest figures, right? And then focus on those countries that have the second largest figure and then the lowest figure, and then compare and contrast them. And that's exactly what the examiner wants you to do. Thank you very much for watching and analyzing this video lesson.